I'm changing. My partner isn't. How do we fix this? I guess I should start by saying that this might be a bit of a rant. So thanks in advance for sticking with me if you make it through. I just feel so stuck right now, and I don't know how to deal with this anymore. I'm in my 30s. My husband David and I have been together for 5 years, and I've recently made some big life changes that are starting to impact our relationship in ways I didn't expect. It all started a few months ago when I decided to go back to college. The goal was pretty straightforward: improve our financial situation, maybe open up more career opportunities for me, and hopefully make life easier for us in the future. David was supportive at first, or at least he said he was. We talked about how things would need to change around the house, especially since I was going to be juggling school, part-time work, and trying to manage everything else. He agreed that he'd take on more of the household responsibilities to help me out. Seemed like we were on the same page. Honestly, I'm starting to think we were never on the same page to begin with. Before school started, we had this whole conversation about what kind of support I would need. I'm not just talking about emotional support, though I need that too, but real, practical help around the house. Simple stuff, like sharing the cooking and cleaning duties. We even made a deal that David would take care of walking the dog in the evenings so I could cook or study or just breathe for a second. Nothing crazy, just basic cooperation. But the problem is that it feels like every little thing has turned into a battle. Like, we agreed we'd take turns taking out the trash. Easy, right? Wrong. It's like pulling teeth. I've had to remind him 3, sometimes 4 times before he actually does it. By the 3rd reminder, I'm getting irritated, and yes, I'll admit, I get angry. I'm not perfect. But seriously, why do I have to ask so many times for something we both agreed on? When I brought it up, he hit me with, "I don't see the big deal. Like, okay, maybe it's not a big deal to take out the trash once, but when you pile it on top of everything else I'm juggling, it adds up. It's just one more thing that I have to keep in my head, one more thing that I have to manage. And it's exhausting." I reminded him that I'm in school now, and I need him to step up. But it's like I'm talking to a wall. We came up with this system to try and fix things. I got us a whiteboard to track who's doing what around the house. That way I wouldn't have to nag, and he'd have a visual reminder. I was hopeful. His turn is coming up again soon, though we'll see if it actually works this time. But honestly, I'm not holding my breath. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine brought over a meal, which was such a sweet gesture because I was totally wiped from a full day of classes and studying. I didn't even have the energy to get out of bed and eat dinner, so David brought the meal to me in bed, which I really appreciated. I was so grateful in that moment. But then, when I was done eating, I asked him to place the container on the floor by the door. Simple request, right? But no. He asked me why, and I told him it was because I didn't want the cat to knock it over or break it. David's response? Well, I don't think the cat will do that. And suddenly, this stupid glass container turned into an argument about whether or not the cat's likely to knock it over. At that point, I was just like, why can't you just do this one thing without turning it into a debate? I mean, I'm asking for such a simple favor. Just put the container on the floor where I asked. Why do I have to explain every little reason behind it? The thing is, I have my own little system that David doesn't even know about. I leave stuff by the door because that's where I put things that I'll take out to the kitchen or the car in the morning. He wouldn't know that, because I wake up a couple of hours before he does. But still, it's just one of those small things that makes my life a little easier. I shouldn't have to explain my whole routine for him to just trust that I know what I'm doing, right? And yeah, I lost my cool. I raised my voice, which happens more often than I'd like. When I'm stressed, I have a hard time controlling the tone of my voice, and I know that. It's something I'm working on. But I was frustrated, and all I wanted was for him to do something simple without making me feel like I was being unreasonable. What's really bothering me is that I feel like I'm the only one who's making any changes or efforts to adapt to this new phase of life. I'm going to school, I'm trying to better our future, and it feels like David is just stuck. He's doing the bare minimum, and it's making me lose respect for him, which scares me because I don't know how to fix that. It's not like I expect him to be perfect or anything, but I just want to feel like we're in this together. I want him to see what I'm dealing with and step up. But instead, it's like I'm pulling all the weight and he's coasting. Resentment is building, and I can feel it creeping into the way I see him. He's starting to seem selfish and unobservant, and I hate feeling this way about the person I love. When we argue about these things, he'll sometimes say that I just want someone who'll do what they're told. And yeah, okay, sometimes that's true. Sometimes I just need things to be done without a back-and-forth discussion. I don't have time to explain every little thing or remind him multiple times. I'm busy, and he's not. It makes me question everything. Am I being unreasonable? Is it too much to ask for him to change his behaviors to match the new demands of our life? Shouldn't he want to contribute more, knowing I'm stretched so thin? Feels like I'm putting in all this effort, and he's just not. The more I think about it, the more I realize that I'm not just frustrated with David. I'm frustrated with myself. I'm changing. I'm pushing myself in new directions, taking on challenges that I never thought I'd be able to handle. But in the process, I feel like I'm losing touch with who I used to be. I'm not the carefree person I was when we got married, and maybe that's part of the problem. I didn't expect marriage to be easy, but I also didn't expect it to feel like this. I thought we'd be a team, growing and changing together. But instead, I feel like I'm out here on my own, evolving into someone new, while David is staying exactly the same. I don't know what to do with that. I don't want to leave him. I love him, and I know he loves me too. But love doesn't fix everything, does it? I mean, if we can't find a way to meet each other halfway, then what's the point? I've been thinking a lot about what I want from this relationship, and honestly, I just want to feel like we're partners again. Right now, it feels like I'm carrying the load of two people, and it's wearing me down. So after a lot of internal debates, I finally decided we needed to talk. Not one of those rushed, angry conversations where we're both defensive and nothing gets resolved. Real talk. I sat him down one evening after dinner. I was nervous, but I knew this couldn't wait any longer. David, I started. I know we've been having a lot of fights lately, and I don't want us to keep going in circles. I don't want to keep arguing, but I feel like we're not on the same page anymore. He looked at me, clearly surprised. I didn't realize you felt like that, he said. I thought we were just dealing with the stress of you going back to school. I took a deep breath. It's more than that. I feel like I'm growing and changing, and I need you to grow with me. I can't keep handling everything on my own. I need your help. David seemed to process that for a minute. I guess I've been stuck in my routine. I didn't realize how much you were taking on. I'm not asking for perfection, I said, but I need to feel like we're in this together. I need to know that I can rely on you without having to nag or remind you all the time. Draining. I understand, he said after a pause. I'll do better. I'll try harder to help out and be more aware of what's going on. That was all I wanted to hear. Just that acknowledgement made me feel lighter, like a huge weight had been lifted. I'm also working on my own communication. I'm trying to control my tone and express my frustrations without blowing up. It's hard, but I'm learning. Most importantly, I'm starting to see that we're both flawed and figuring this out together. Marriage isn't about one person growing while the other stays behind. It's about finding ways to grow together, even when life pulls you in different directions. It's not easy, but I'm hopeful. We're talking more, and I feel like we're both finally putting in the effort to make this work. Maybe that's what was missing all along. Effort from both sides. So yeah, I'm changing, but maybe, just maybe, we can still change together. Moving in with my parents instead of my boyfriend. 6 months. Is this really for our future? I've been feeling like I'm stuck in a weird place lately, and I just need to get this off my chest. Sorry in advance for the long post, but I'm trying to be fair to everyone involved, not skew things too much in one direction or the other. So here goes. My boyfriend Adam and I have been together for about a year and a half. For the last 6 months, we've been talking about moving in together. I've got this amazing apartment in the city, and my roommate was planning to move out, so it felt like the perfect opportunity for Adam to move in with me. We've discussed it over and over. The rent would be almost the same as what he's already paying, and it'd be a great way for us to take that next step in our relationship. It made sense to me. But of course, nothing ever goes as planned. Adam works about 70 minutes away from my apartment, which is a pretty long commute. I've always said that maybe we should just move somewhere closer to his job, away from the chaos of the city. I thought it might make life easier for him, especially since his current job is pretty draining. But every time I brought it up, he shot the idea down. He loves the city, and for some reason, he thought the commute was manageable. Still, the idea was that he'd move into my place once my roommate left, and we'd figure it out. Timing seemed perfect. My roommate gave her 30-day notice, and we were all set, or so I thought. Suddenly, Adam starts telling me that moving in together right now might not be the best idea. Out of nowhere, it's the wrong move. Couldn't believe it. After months of talking about this, after all the planning, he just flips the script on me. He's got his reasons. Of course, we've got a ton of expenses coming up over the next 6 months, 2 weddings to attend, one of them being an international trip, which isn't cheap, ski passes, a holiday trip to the East Coast to visit his family, and a bunch of other smaller but still expensive stuff. And to be honest, after all that chaos, I was hoping to treat myself to a little vacation. I've been through a lot, and I think I deserve it. Adam would be invited, of course, but it'd be my thing, my way to unwind. So yeah, I get that we've got some financial hurdles coming up, but does that really mean we have to put our plans on hold? Adam's first solution to this whole mess was that I could just move in with him and his roommate Jake. Now, I love Adam, but Jake? That's a hard no. Jake is, without putting it lightly, a slob. Their house looks like something out of a frat movie, and honestly, I'm 30 years old. I can't live like that. There are dirty dishes piled up, food left in cabinets for way too long, and the place just feels gross. It's not somewhere I'd want to call home, let alone live with 2 grown men who seem to have no idea how to take care of themselves. I mean, Adam isn't as bad as Jake, but let's just say their place doesn't exactly meet my standard. I'd lose my mind living there. So that option was off the table. That's when Adam suggested something else. What if I moved back in with my parents for 6 months while he stayed at his place and saved up money? He'd pay off his loans, save for a down payment on a house, cover all these upcoming activities, and generally just get his finances in order. Meanwhile, I'd move out of my beloved apartment and back in with my parents. Let me tell you, this idea hit me like a ton of bricks. Moving in with my parents is not something I ever thought I'd have to do again. I love them, I really do, but we are just so different. They're old school, traditional, and have a completely different worldview from mine. I've become this super liberal, independent, modern woman, and moving back in with them feels like I'm taking a huge step backward. But it's more than just our differences. There's also the logistics of it. When I moved out years ago, my dad took over my room. He's been using it ever since, and given his health problems, it would be really shitty of me to ask him to give it up now. So that means I'd be sharing a bed with my mom in her tiny room. My mom, bless her, is beyond excited that I'd be moving back in, but she's the kind of person who cries when I leave after spending an entire weekend together. I know it's going to be smothering. Plus, their apartment is packed to the brim with 22 years worth of stuff. It's like a cluttered time capsule, and there's barely room for my things. Forget about having any privacy or space of my own. I feel like I'd be sacrificing so much. My freedom, my independence, sanity, just to save some money. I should probably mention that Adam has his own baggage. He's from the East Coast, and he moved out here to the West Coast 4 years ago to live his best life. His parents are getting older, and his mom is disabled, so they could really use him closer to home. But instead of moving back, he's choosing to stay here with me, even though I've told him 100 times that I'd understand if he wanted to be near his family. He got a job offer recently that would put him 20 minutes away from his parents. But he turned it down because he can't imagine life without me. And to be clear, can't imagine my life without him either. But still, I keep wondering if we're both making the right choices here. I've already decided I can't leave my own parents behind. They don't speak English, and they're getting older too. So even though I'd love to move somewhere else with Adam, I just can't leave them alone. Financially, moving in with my parents makes sense. I'd save about $7,000 to $8,000 over the next 6 months. I'd be close to my parents, which is important because they need my help with their health and day-to-day things. And Adam's agreed that he'll pay for any improvements we make to their place, which is something. But every time I think about it, I just feel like I'm giving up so much of myself for this plan. The more I think about it, the more the resentment starts to build. I'm giving up my perfect home, my personal space, and 64 plants that I've carefully nurtured and loved. Yeah, you read that right. 64 plants. I have to rehome most of them because there's no way I can bring them all with me to my parents' overcrowded apartment. It breaks my heart. And I'm starting to resent Adam too, which makes me feel awful. It's not really his fault that this is happening, but I can't help but feel like he's getting the better end of the deal. He's going to keep living in his space, working toward his financial goals, while I'm stuck in this uncomfortable limbo. I'm the one who has to make the big sacrifice. Then there's Jake. Don't even get me started on him. I can't stand the guy. He's decided he doesn't want to financially contribute to fixing up their place, but he's happy to live in a cleaner, nicer home thanks to Adam's efforts. And, by extension, mine. Drives me nuts. He's not lifting a finger, and yet he's going to benefit from all of this. I refuse to even speak to him at this point because it just feels so unfair. And then there are my parents. They love me to death and they're happy I'm moving back in, but they don't support this decision at all. They don't understand why I'm doing it, and they don't agree with the reasoning behind it. Every time I try to explain, we end up in an argument. I'm already snapping at them, and I haven't even moved back in yet. The reality of it all has hit me hard. I'm ugly crying every few hours because the weight of it all feels like too much. The discomfort of the next 6 months feels overwhelming and miserable. I feel trapped, like I'm losing control of my own life. I'm angry at Adam for suggesting this plan. I'm angry at myself for agreeing to it. I'm frustrated with my parents for being difficult, even though I know they love me. I'm dreading the next 6 months and what they'll mean for my mental health, my relationship, and my sense of self. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, I know that moving in with my parents is the smart thing to do financially. It'll help Adam and me save money, and it'll put me in a better position to help my parents as they get older. But on the other hand, it feels like I'm giving up so much. Independence, space, a peace of mind. So now I'm left wondering, who's right? Am I making the right choice by moving in with my parents? Should I be putting my relationship first and finding a way to make it work with Adam, even if it means financial strain? Or is this just one of those tough life decisions where no option feels perfect? I honestly don't know how to handle the stress and anxiety without taking it out on the people I love. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Adam or with my parents, but I'm struggling to find a way forward that doesn't make me feel like I'm losing a part of myself. If anyone has been through something like this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you deal with the stress of making such a huge sacrifice for the sake of your future? How do I keep my sanity and not resent the people around me while I go through this? Because right now, I'm not sure how to move forward without breaking down. Subscribe to the channel and like it.